Are we ready for some incredibly saturated colors? Welcome back to Morning Glories and Maimeri Blue Paints. So we have started with our first layer of Morning Glories, and that is our lightest color. But now we get to add a deeper mid-tone and really build in that lovely saturation that really takes your watercolors to the next level. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Again, I'm Sarah Simon, the Mint Gardener. And as you can see, I love making watercolor accessible. You do not need a fancy palette. You can grab your best kitchen saucer, cup and saucer, and begin with this fabulous collection of my favorite Maimeri blue paints. Watercolor is all about building levels and layers of color. A lot of people make the mistake of trying watercolor. They do one layer and then they go womp womp. It feels a little precious moments, and it lacks that punch and brightness and life that often can be found in other mediums. But I would encourage you, come back to watercolor if it has always enticed you, and learn how to add these beautiful midtones that I'm teaching you with this collection of colors, and learn how to build and make your watercolors really pop up off your page. I promise you, it's one of the most satisfying mediums I've ever created in. And these paints allow you to really explore. They're also very, very user-friendly, learning to mix colors and create some incredible creations. I'm known for my watercolor florals. However, I know that this set would be incredible for landscapes, pet portraits, you name it. It has the diversity in colors that you need for painting everything. We started building with a primary set of colors, red, yellow, and blue, added dragon's blood because a great deep red is just going to add a little bit more and give you different tonal values when you mix it in. And then, of course, our white and our green, the hooker's green, there was just no way I could leave that off because it is such an incredible color. So you have the ability to make a lot of different greens, a lot of different secondary and tertiary colors when mixing these, which you're seeing right now. So our first layer has dried. I've come back an hour later. I have beautiful dried washes that are pretty on their own, but I'm wanted to take this piece to the next level to really kind of give these colors a spin. You can see on my new plate palette in the upper right-hand corner, I've mixed Payne's Gray and our permanent red deep, and you can get a deep purple if you use more blue, and then you can get kind of that lovely wine burgundy if you lean more towards the permanent red deep. That's one lovely thing to know about watercolor is you are on a spectrum of color saturation and tonal value, okay? So you can absolutely make everything lighter, just like you can make everything a bit more deep and saturated. If you need it to be deep and saturated, you use heavier paint. And obviously, if you want it to be a little lighter, you use more water. Okay, I'm back to using my flat brush because I love the unpredictability and the mark making abilities of this brush, but I also have my round one on hand and some other, of course, Princeton Velvet Touch brushes that are also my favorites. So I am building in a wet on dry layer, which simply means wet paint on a dry boundary of paint. And I'm using the water in my jar to soften that new line of deep burgundy that I am highlighting. And I'm also using water and just the edge of my brush to accent and create these leading lines that take your flat flowers that kind of look like fried eggs and turning them and twisting them and bringing in different angles of the Morning Glory flower face so that it feels like you're observing a morning glory that is just climbing right over your fence and blooming for you. All right. Sometimes you see a flower straight on, but often you see glimpses of the sides of flowers. Sometimes you get to see part of the inside and other times you don't. And so you're able to, with this secondary layer, draw the eye in and invite your observer to see that this face of the morning glory is actually much brighter and bolder than the bottom cup, okay? The bottom cups of flowers are often pretty bright and they draw the bees in for pollination. So I'm spending a little bit of time on this transition from the face of the flower to the actual cup. And it's incredible to watch a piece go from flat to all of a sudden having depth and dimension. I'm using the flat part of the brush to add more color and saturation, but then I'm also using just the edges of the brush to get thinner. Do you see I can get thinner and thicker lines with this flat wash brush? It's a flat wash 3/4 velvet touch Princeton brush, and I do not go anywhere without it. I absolutely love it. This is more of a filbert that I'm using right there to flatten and to kind of smooth that transition. But you could also use a round 4 if that's what you had on hand. Now, watercolor tells on you, I like to say, if you fuss with it too much. So notice I put on the wash in this burgundy color, and while the wash is still wet, I was using the smaller brush to kind of soften the edges. See how I soften that edge so that it fades more readily into the background, into that first wash, so we don't have too hard of drying lines. And then I use a very concentrated amount of that deeper color that I've mixed with the Payne's Gray and the Permanent Red Deep, and I'm dabbing it in kind of sporadically wherever I still see wetness, okay? This is the joy of watercolor. Now I've played my role, and the paint and the water get to sing in those wet boundaries, and I get to sit back and watch and see as the magic unfolds. And these morning glories are just asking for another layer. So we're gonna come back and add a third wet on dryer layer to really give this piece the pop that we need.